What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka Ferst Report. It is October 30th, 2020, Friday to be exact. We're a day late, but that's okay. You're still here listening to us. And it is, of course, time for the call to post with my esteemed co-host, Mr. Raider Jim Martinez. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing real good. It's Friday. We're a day late this week. Thanks for being able to be flexible and adjust the schedule. But what a great way to start the weekend, and what a weekend it's going to be. We've got the opening of the Bing Crosby session over at Del Mar. We are 1 week away. By this time next week, day one of the Breeders' Cup is already going to be in the books, and we'll have results. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we all know what that is. That is going to be one of the most pivotal days in the nation when it is Election Day. And I will start my piece of the podcast this way and probably end it the same way. Partisan aside, it's a responsibility and it's a privilege to go out and vote. So please exercise that privilege, exercise that right. Don't take it for granted. Get out there and cast that vote.
Amen. You might not like the candidates, the choices out there, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people in this world that are at this moment and would die to have that right to vote for their leaders. So that is, like you said, your obligation. And as my mother would say, look, if you don't vote, you can't bitch. So, and believe
that's
me, there's
what
a lot
I
of
tell
bitching
people.
going on.
That's
so
right.
There, I guarantee you, not all these people voted. Damn it! So let's get out there on Tuesday, vote, or if you already mailed it in, whatever you did, hopefully do vote. And one last thing, look. Yes, go out and vote, but also do some research, please. Don't just look at the commercials and your mailers. There's a lot of the other research. It's not fun. Sometimes you got to get down in the muck, but you know what? It is also your responsibility to know what you're doing,
Right.
because it is affecting a lot of people. But now that we got that out of the way, let's start talking, obviously, about how you can get in touch with us. Myself at Ferst Report, Ferst Report, and Raider Jim is at Raider Jim 1090. You can follow us on Twitter. That is going to be very pivotal in the next coming weeks as we start giving you tips for the Bing Crosby this weekend, and obviously next weekend with the Breeders' Cup and the Bing Crosby throughout. So we're going to be dropping those hints and plays for you. So you're going to have to follow us on Twitter to get those, and make sure all these videos, if you missed any of the call a post or anything you want to follow from myself, any of the stuff we have going on here, or the network we are a part of, the Ramblin and Gamblin Sports Network, make sure to go to YouTube, search them, make sure you check everything out. There have tons of content for you to make money in a bunch of ways, especially watching sports. Love it. And it's really what this podcast is about, horse racing. Horses are beautiful and I love being around them, but hey, just like anything in life, if you can make some money doing it, let's do it. And as we get now 1 week away to the biggest weekend of the season in horse racing, Breeders' Cup weekend, I brought up a question to Raider Jim a couple weeks ago, and I'm pretty, experienced guy when it comes to this stuff. We have the qualifiers, we have the win and you're in races to get into these different classes, these 14 different races of Breeders' Cup weekend. Is that the only way you get in? And luckily, Raider Jim, as always, I tell you, you want to know something, he will not only answer your question, but he'll answer your follow-up that you didn't even know you needed, and then another one that you didn't even know how to ask, but he still answered it for you. He is an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I would absolutely love for right now to kind of share how that all comes about, because it's not all just win and you're in. There are other criteria.
Right. So on the Breeders' Cup, and again, as Brandon said, this is the biggest horse racing weekend in North America. $31 million in purses over 2 days. How do those horses get picked? Well, first of all, they max out the field for every race except one. It's a 14 entry limit on every race except one, and I do have that right in front of me, I think. I will get down to that. There's one race where they only allow 12 entries. However, 14, you can pre-enter. They will have sub-lists going on. But during the course of a year, and when Brandon and I first started doing the call to post, we would talk weekly about the Breeders' Cup challenge races. those are the races that are, we use the analogy, the NCAA March Madness basketball tournament. Doesn't matter if you are a 99-1 shot in a race and it's a Breeders' Cup Challenge race. If you win that race, you are automatically, you punched your ticket to go to Breeders' Cup weekend at whatever given race that's associated with. So if you win a Breeders' Cup Challenge, you can get in. There are also point systems. The point system is for grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3 races, certain ones. And as you win the race, a race, or if you place or if you show, in other words, if you are in the money on one of those graded races, you accumulate points. So even if you don't win a Challenge Cup Series race, maybe you've accumulated 15, 20 points, and that's good enough for the committee to look at and say, that horse needs to be in there because that horse is a competitor. Maybe it placed twice and won twice. And when it placed, maybe it was track conditions, maybe it was a bump, maybe it was just an off day. Regardless, it accumulated points and it was consistent. And then the third way is, well, the committee just says, we think that horse has potential and we should put him in. Now, you can enter up to 2 races, you can pre-enter, I should say, up to 2 races. So if Brandon has a horse named Spot, he can put Spot in for the distaff, he can put Spot in for the classic, and then it's up to Brandon at the end of the day, where does his horse really fit in and what field is he going to fit in? Those are the 3 ways that you can get in, and that's, again, the owner and the stable, it's their option on where they're going to put somebody. The committee, I don't have the details on how many members are in the committee, but again, it's just like the NCAA. When you know who's won the ACC, who's won the Mountain West, who's won the West Coast Conference, all those teams are automatically going to the big dance. But then you always hear at the end, well, there's supposed to be 64 teams. We only know of these 42 that have qualified, and then they sit in a room. They go, well, we'll take this one, and this goes by RPI, strength schedules, things like that. They're doing the same thing with these horses. From there, it goes down to eligible entries. I think we just covered that. The deadline for that was the 26th to pre-enter your horses. And again, pre-enter up to 2, but they're not going to set the fields for the horses. If you went on right now and looked at the pre-entries, you would see more than 14 horses listed for any given race. But by Monday afternoon, I believe it is, that will be a done deal. We don't have jockey assignments yet. They probably have a good idea for some. Baffert, I guarantee you, knows who's going to ride his horses, as does a Custom Auto, as does a Barclay Tag. These guys know who's going to ride their horses. But it's not listed yet. Now, how much money do the horses win? That's another thing that comes up. Great, you got $31 million of purses out there, but some purses are only $1 million at a race. The big one, the Classic, is $6 million. What do they really win? So the way they break that down is percentages. If you are the first place horse, you're going to win 52% of the purse. And from there, it goes 17%, 9%, 5%, 3%, 2%, 7 through 10 places get 1%. So using the best race, the Breeders' Cup Classic as the example, if you come in 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th, you're going to get $60,000. And if you come in 5th, you're going to get $300,000. Then if you finish in the money, if you are the show horse, you walk away with just over $500,000, just over $1 million to place, and the granddaddy of them all, if you're in the winner's circle because you won the Breeders' Cup Classic, you will walk away with $3.1 million. And this is kind of comical, but it makes sense. There's also, they call them awards. Think of it as a stipend, if you will, for travel. So if you've got a West Coast horse, if you've got the Baffert horses from California that need to get to Kentucky, they give them 10 grand to travel out there, which that's fair. I mean, you don't just walk up to the ticket counter and buy it. You know, hey, we want to put maximum security in the coach class. What's it going to cost me? So 10 grand for that. Now, if you are outside of North America, and they're traveling from, say, Argentina, Ireland, one of those, for some of the smaller horses, the juveniles, you might see that they actually get a travel award of $40,000, which is not bad and very fair. So that's kind of how it breaks down as far as how do you get in, how do you qualify. The fields right now, as I said, if you look right now, you can get an idea of who the pre-entries are. You can get definites because it will show you who won on the Breeders' Cup website. It will show you who won all the Challenge Cup races and who's definitely in. So that's worth a look. And then even download the app for the Breeders' Cup because they will have a plethora of information from here on out, plus the live coverage. TVG will as well. So I would highly recommend both of those websites. Now, what is if this is the biggest one in North America, one of the races that I've talked about earlier in the spring and going into summer was the big Saudi Cup, the big one. I mean, that is the mother of all. That is, you're talking $10 million to the horse that wins that race, which is shrouded in controversy still because of a horse named Maximum Security, which we have done some reporting on. We've done a lot of research on it. And when I sat down and started making notes so that we could use that as a topic for one of our podcasts, it was the rabbit hole that I didn't even know existed because as I was just in our pre-podcast talk today, I was explaining to Brandon again, it's like, I think I'm going to read for 45 minutes or an hour so I can get 2 or 3 pages of notes. And then 2 or 3 hours has gone by and there's just chapter after chapter after chapter because of all of the underhanded things that seem to be taking place surrounding that race, that horse, the handlers of the horse, not the horse itself, of course. But that is my segue into where we're going to talk next, because what we're hoping for is that when all is said and done with the Breeders' Cup, there is no controversy in any race. None of the horses come out 2-3 weeks later, a month later, not even 6 months later, where controversy becomes the topic and not the accomplishment and achievement of the athlete, the horse, the athlete, the jockey, and the trainers. So with that, I'm going to let Brandon take over, and we're going to tongue in cheek, I say this, but I've decided that we're going to become the Bernstein and Woodward of the horse racing game here, and we're going to start digging and uncovering, and you'll probably we'll have black cars following us down the road one day. That's one of them. I just know it. I kid when I say that. But Brandon, go ahead, take it away and tell the folks about the rabbit hole that you found.
Yeah, we had heard rumblings. I don't quite remember if we had talked about it. It might have been before the pod, and I don't know if we did talk about it on the pod. It was very short, and it was very, hey, we don't even know the horses that were actually involved, but we knew that there was a positive test that had come out of the Kentucky Oaks. Now, the Kentucky Oaks is, I guess, if you would like to, is kind of the Kentucky Derby of the Friday. It's the appetizer of the weekend. It's the day before.
Juveniles. It's the juveniles.
It is the juveniles. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to, and it had came out that they didn't say which horse, but a horse had tested positive, and myself and Raider Jim had talked about it. And I think off air, we had just kind of joked that, look, if anyone in that race tested positive, it would probably be She Dares the Devil. And it's absolutely no disrespect to anyone associated She Dares the Devil. It was just She Dares the Devil had the run of her life. She beat Gamine in Swiss Skydiver. It was one of the biggest upsets of the year. So rather kind of tongue in cheek, ha ha ha. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately for them, for those connections, that wasn't the case. For the Kentucky Oaks, that at least win will hold, but it was Gamine, the third place finisher in the Kentucky Oaks, a Bob Baffert horse that tests positive. And we're going to, first, I'm just going to focus on this positive test. It's from a drug known as betamethasone. And look, from Baffert's attorney, it says, look, it's a legal and commonly used anti-inflammatory medication. And I will also preface this. When we talk about maximum security is in Baffert's barn right now. But I need to preface this before I go too deep into this story. Nick Schuch, who was training Maximum Security was essentially pumping liquid cocaine, liquid speed into his horses, something that no vet or no person who wants a horse to feel better will do. That's not something that that a horse player or a person who actually cares about the horse will do.
Right. There is a difference, as Brandon is saying, there's a difference between what was found in the Gamine tests and stablemate of Gamine charlatan.
Yes.
Now, there's a difference between what we're talking about there and the Maximum Security storyline, because that is completely synthetic, fabricated, manufactured stuff that is not at all legal by any stretch. As a matter of fact, you're talking brown paper wrappers in the mail type stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference in the two stories. It's the same type of a storyline, but completely different.
Exactly. And I just want to make that known, or at least for the very fact checkers that are out there. We are talking about the anti-inflammatory situations. And really, I know Sesame Street had, this section of the show is sponsored by the letter F. Well, this section of the show is sponsored by the phrase environmental contamination, because you are going to learn more than you will ever want to know about environmental contamination, at least when it comes to horses here in this segment. But essentially, betamethasone was found in Gamine. Now, in August, the state of Kentucky, the horse racing powers at B, dropped the amount that a horse can have in its system from 10 picograms to 0 picograms. So it essentially became zero tolerance. You're not allowed to have it. This anti-inflammatory is supposed to be out of the horse's system in 14 days. That is what apparently Baffert's attorney has said was told to those people. In Kentucky, it is a Class C drug. But like I said, it requires that 14-day withdrawal. Therefore, anytime it is found in a drug test for a horse that just raced, it is against the rules, because you're not allowed to have it within 14 days. And that's the biggest thing with these anti-inflammatories. Anti-inflammatories are life-saving for horses. Now, you're also not supposed to have your horses running races at all while needing anti-inflammatories. That's where we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with the liquid cocaine and the synthetic stuff. That's the bad stuff that's going on here, is running horses that probably shouldn't be ran if they need anti-inflammatories that close to the race. Anyways, I will continue. It will also be pointed out that despite the drop in Kentucky's threshold from 10 picograms to 0 picograms, 27 picograms were found in Gamine. Now, lawyers are lawyers, and they are paid a lot of money to spit a narrative. If you do go, and I do want to quote the article that I'm mainly using here. It's from Gabriel Fernandez of cbssports.com. It's a very long website link, but nothing a quick Google search won't find you. But the attorney was pretty much bringing up the fact that, and I do somewhat agree with the fact that there is not a governing body throughout the country. Kentucky has their thresholds for this drug, and California has other thresholds. Also, there are plenty of people in the industry that say 27 picograms of this drug does not affect a 1,000-pound animal. That was a direct quote, or at least the affect a 1,000-pound animal was a direct quote from the attorney. Now, it is getting a little gray when you go a little deeper and realize that this is actually the second time that Gamine has been in trouble this year. We go back to Oakland Park. Yeah.
Twice in 4 months, and that's where the first suspension came about as Del Mar was getting underway for Mr. Baffert.
That's right. And that was also the same time that Maximum Security was awarded to Bob Baffert. And there were a lot of people that thought, oh, Bob Baffert just got in trouble. It must have been for Maximum Security. Once again, these are two completely different stories. Unfortunately, there is the same intersectional person with at least Baffert who has the horse now. But Gamine tested positive at Oak Hill Park in Arkansas for lidocaine. And lidocaine is another anti-inflammatory drug, but this is different. Now I've never been around horses in a capacity. I don't know how easy this can happen. But apparently the powers that be didn't seem to, I mean, they suspended Baffert, but they at least accepted this, saying that one of the assistant trainers was wearing a pain patch and it seeped, and he was also handling Gamine. And that's how it happened. That's what Bob Baffert said. Once again, I'm not somebody that will have information to dispute that. Doesn't sound incredibly coherent to me, but once again, I'm on the betting side of things, not really on the biological side. So
I'm imagining a salon pause patch about the size of that Padre banner behind you.
Yeah,
And that,
exactly, right?
I mean, exactly. I'm thinking of, okay, the trainer was wearing, or the handler was wearing something, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe even if it was the biggest one, like a 3x4, 3x5 patch, there was enough in that to where it tested on a 1,200-pound horse. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And I want one of those patches to help me walk better when my back hurts. That'd be great.
I mean, you might even need just like a third of those patches. One full one might be too much. It's almost like too much power. Okay, and now let's go deeper down the rabbit hole. We talk about environmental contamination. Well, this isn't the first time that Baffert Barn has dealt with environmental contamination either. And I'm not talking about an optional claiming horse. I'm not talking about which, hey, all horses, all those thoroughbreds matter. They're all great. But back in 2018, both in the same weekend at Santa Anita, let me find the name up, Hoppertunity, which is in Baffert's barn, wins the Tokyo City Cup. And then Justify, yes, that Justify that would go on to win the Triple Crown and retire undefeated. That horse won the Santa Anita Derby. Okay. Now it was found in their post-race results that they had tested positive for scopolamine. Sorry, I knew I was going to mess up on one of those three drugs, so you're welcome. And that was found in the CHRB, which is the California Horse Racing Board, took Dr. Rick Arthur's advice. And Dr. Rick Arthur at the time may still be, I'm not sure, but at the time was the equine medical doctor, pretty much the top medical doctor for the California Horse Racing Board. He ruled that it was environmental contamination in the hay that these horses ate. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is that was the California Horse Racing Board who decided we're going to throw away these positive tests and go with our doctor who says, no, this is because of contaminated hay, which holds up a lot better than a patch. I will give them that. They've at least no, I'm just kidding. I'm not making assumptions here, but look, that sounds a little more believable to me than a patch. But anyways, the contaminated hay. Now, all this was done behind closed doors. We don't hear about anything about a positive test from either of these horses until almost a year later in September of 2019, whenever the New York Times breaks something, oof, that's not good. And that's exactly what happened. New York Times breaks this story that Justify had tested positive. Now, look, contaminated hay, maybe if they get out in front of it, they say, okay, and it's maybe a little more believable, but when you have a kind of a secret closed door meeting, you don't tell anybody about it. This horse goes on to be one of the greatest of our generation. Eyebrows are going to be raised. Now, one final, and this might not even be the final, this was just at the moment, one bit to deal with, is earlier this week, stewards at Santa Anita heard the opposing viewpoints. So the California Horse Racing Board, back in 2018, the same entity that decided, no, it was contaminated hay, don't worry about the positive test, are now going to the Santa Anita Racing Board and saying both of these horses need to be disqualified. We need to repay out these purses and to these stewards. And all this after, in 2 years ago, it was the CHRB who was the ones who decided, not only are we going to cover this up, but we're going to, or well, first, not only are we going to throw away these positive tests, but we're not going to tell anybody about it. And 2 years later, they are now going after the prize money. For me, the rabbit hole doesn't always end in Alice in Wonderland. A lot of times it ends in a dark, muddy place that you wish there was a Mad Hatter around there. It would make a lot more sense. This story to me, it was, I still don't think I'm anywhere near the tip of it, but with what happened this week, I felt it was my, I guess, duty to at least bring up the craziness that's going on really in, I hate to say it, and I don't want to jump to conclusions because once again, everything that happened with maximum security was pre-Baffert. But if we take that out of it, there is a lot going on in that barn, whether it's environmental contamination or not. There is something, who knows? And once again, we don't know if Baffert is going to deal with the suspension. This is a situation where at the end of the day, whether Kentucky dropped it from 10 picograms to 0, your horse had 27 picograms of the anti-inflammatory in the system. Of course, the attorney is now saying that he's the horse is the victim, that the vets are not saying the right things for when drugs are supposed to be flushed. Of course, we're now in a he said, she said situation. But once again, this is now the fourth time really in 3 years that Baffert's horses at the top level, we're only at the top level here. There might even be some smaller stuff that we don't hear about, but at the top level of these barn, or at this barn, there's
these are the ones
stuff going on.
These are the ones that a light has been shined upon.
Yes.
We don't know what hasn't been, what is still in the dark, what is still in the shadows. And that's, again, we've got Breeders' Cup next weekend. We've got 3 or 4 weeks of Del Mar racing. Then there's a bit of a lull. Rest assured, this is not the last time. This is kind of a good introduction to what we are going to talk about week in and week out. We are going to do the research. I'm going to resurrect and bring back the maximum security story. We're going to tie it together with what Brandon's talking about today. And more importantly, as I was doing the research on the maximum security items that I wrote, one person that I was able to get in touch with was the Director of Communications for Congressman Paul Tonko out of New York, who again is running again, and it looks like he's doing real well and should retain his seat in Congress. Congressman Tonko is actually co-author of a bill, a bipartisan bill, which is amazing. Another congressman out of Kentucky, they have been working on a bill for 5 years. It's already, nobody is going to turn this one down. Once everything is settled after Tuesday, they hope to get this thing passed sooner than later. And that was from the Director of Communications for Congressman Tonko, who has already said, I'll talk to you all day long about this if you want. So we're hoping we're even going to get him on to give us a few minutes. It is an equality bill for horse racing so that it becomes better regulated, better monitored, if you will. The states can all do their thing, but under the guidance and under the watchful eye of a federal committee. Why? Just for these instances, just to keep it fair, equitable, and most importantly, their whole thing is the bottom line. We've got to keep the animals safe. Lidocaine is a numbing agent. Imagine if you got, you got hit real hard going across the middle, and you knew your hip was messed up, your leg was messed up, but they took you into the locker room at halftime and shot you full of Novocaine, so that you could still walk, you could still run, but you can't feel it. And then you just keep getting hit and hit and hit, and that injury is getting worse. That's kind of what they're doing to these animals to a level. And that is what Congressman Tonko and the other congressmen are trying to prevent.
And I've also said it on the podcast before. I'm American. I believe that, look, Bill Romanowski going out there and putting that crap in his body and doing those things, that is your right as American citizen. Now there are going to be consequences for those decisions. However, maximum security, never act Nick Shush to shoot him up. He never got a chance to say no. These are horses that are being used. And that is honestly, I can't tell you how many times I bring up the bill that is being talked about, and not only the people who don't care about horse racing, in just for the fact that, look, there is still bipartisanship here. Who knows? This could be one of the first measures that goes through under a new or a reelected president. Could be one of the first ones. I don't know how much publicity it will get, especially if it goes through with no blood. It seems like the bloody ones are the ones that get all the pub. But as long as this goes through, and like Raider Jim talked about, we get a guys or at least an umbrella that can keep an eye on stuff like this. I kind of look at it kind of in terms of UFC. There's every state, or at least gaming commissions, boxing, every state has maybe different rules for the most part, but for they're all around that same area. We saw it with COVID, the differences between tracks, what you got to do. Okay, at Santa Anita, they have a jockey area where everyone gets your own trainer. Well, who knows? Maybe Del Mar, they send you to a hotel. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but my point is, every track had something different. Well,
right.
Maybe in the coronavirus, look, they did the best they could. I continue to take my hat off to everything that Del Mar did. And they were rewarded with it. I actually saw a story on the KUSI News today. They were talking to somebody very high up there, and he talked about they had record handles this year with no fans. That is incredible. And it really does warm my heart, because I want Del Mar to still be there when this is all said and done. But when it came to coronavirus and the handling, I thought that was kind of a microcosm for what needs to happen. We need to have a uniform policy. We need every single track to have, okay, how many picograms of this drug or whatever, everywhere is the same, or at least start taking steps towards that. And I really do think this bill is that. Believe me, it does not get more partisan or bipartisan than a Democrat from New York and a Republican from Kentucky.
Right. And like I say, 5 years in the works, so obviously it's possible for people to get along, and it's good to see and good to hear.
Amen. And that's, I think, one of the main things. I really think as a whole, most people are getting along. Try not to fall too deep into what certain things or certain networks are trying to make you fall. I think for a lot of us, we still are very proud to be American, and I'm proud to be neighbors to my neighbors. And I think a lot of people are like that. But anyways, with that being said, is there anything else you'd like to add, or any final thoughts as we get ready, as you kind of said, for a very interesting weekend here at Del Mar, the open of the Bing Crosby Stakes, and then of course next week going into of course Tuesday, and then of course Breeders' Cup, which I still kind of thought was our lollipop at the end of the dentist trip. That will be the election.
I think for the sake of everybody listening and following us and all the talk we've done about Breeders' Cup, I just want to be clear that it is not your average weekend. It is not a Saturday, Sunday type thing. The first day of Breeders' Cup is actually going to be for the youngsters, if you will, kind of like that Kentucky Derby weekend we talked to where they run the Kentucky Oaks. This is going to be all the 2-year-olds, all the juveniles run on Friday. 5 races with, let's see, a $2 million purse, $1 million purse, another $2 million, and then $2 million purses after that. So $7 million in races on Friday alone. And don't kid yourself. This is not watching lesser caliber thoroughbreds. These are the stars of tomorrow. These are the horses. You're going to see some of these possibly competing to get into the Kentucky Derby next year. These are 2-year-olds. And so watch it. There's going to be some good races. The last one that day, I believe, is a 500-yard sprint, which on the turf. And you want to see some horses move, that's going to be a good time out there. So do not miss. I think Jackie's Warrior is one of the horses that's racing in one of the first, the $2 million race. That horse is amazing. She's an amazing horse. So again, tune into that day one, follow it as you can. Friday's going to be great. We'll be back to talk about Friday. Of course, we're going to talk about all the big ones on Saturday, and then we have the Del Mar races coming up starting tomorrow. The only real big race this weekend, I believe, is going to be the Catherine Crosby Stakes, which is race number 7. Race number 7. It's only $75,000 purse, but that is the big stakes race of the day on Saturday. And the favorite right now is, as I put out on Twitter last night, it's the number 6 horse, Cordiality, at 7-2. But Saturday, I assure you, I'll be online giving you information on Twitter about how the morning lines are moving. Drayden Van Dyke is going to be riding that one. It's a Tim Yakteen trained horse, so definitely going to be competitive. But you got all of our West Coast favorites out there. Bob Baffert has a 5-1 out there, ridden by Abel Cedillo, who, what do you say about that kid? Umberto Rispoli is riding a 5-1 for Callahan. So they're all the Flavian Pratt's on an 8-1. So if you were looking for a longer shot, if you got Flavian Pratt on the reins, you got a chance to make money. So watch those lines, though. They're going to move a lot Saturday morning. And as far as the whole Bing Crosby session, again, it's only 4 weeks long. It starts on Halloween Day. It's going to start on Saturday, and it ends the Sunday after Thanksgiving, which is the 29th of November this year. Now, until then, you've got $100,000 stakes here, $150,000 stakes there. But you go into that last weekend of the Bing Crosby session, you're going to have races over the course of 3 days, 4 days, $1.3 million in purses. That's not bad. And culminating with on Saturday, the 28th, they do have the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby Stakes, $300,000 race. That's going to be a good race. I don't know who the pre-entries are right now, but that's one that we will be talking about as we build up to that. And there will be racing. Maybe you can't get together with your family, or it's going to be a much smaller crowd at your house than you're used to. Well, guess what? Del Mar's running on Thanksgiving Day. So you'll be able to follow Del Mar Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which, forgive me, all you people who think there's this sacrilege, I know, but if my kids don't come over, what else have I got to do?
Well, hey, if you live in California, the holidays are only allowed to last for 2 hours. So you have plenty of time after that. The Bing Crosby, it's very interesting because obviously up until a couple of years ago, we never had that. And the reason why, obviously, Hollywood Park closing down, that meet was pretty much up in the air, and you don't have a chance to be in the Breeders' Cup. You don't get a chance to host the Breeders' Cup if you only run a summer meet. So obviously Del Mar, that is essentially what the Bing Crosby season is for. Now, I would expect it kind of like when Qualcomm or whatever it was called before it's getting beaten up. We have the Super Bowl every 4 or 5 years. It's San Diego. It's November. It's probably where you want to be. So really, really excited. Like I said, we've talked about it pretty much every podcast. There are very few bets that we can guarantee, but I will guarantee that this time next year at Del Mar, if they let us, both myself and Raider Jim will be there. And I'll tell you what, even if they don't let us, we will still probably find a way. At least, even if we're like sneaking onto those houses, the white roofs, overlooking the backstretch, if we have to do that is always a possibility. But always a pleasure. And like Raider Jim said, we are going to be with you every Friday all the way until that day that we are eventually streaming live. But thank you so much, Raider Jim. Final thoughts today.
Oh, my pleasure. Again, everybody get out and vote. Everybody be safe and stay healthy going into the holiday season. Have a good Halloween tomorrow. Yep. If I may, this will be one of the first of 2 times that you'll hear me before the end of the year. Tomorrow would have been my dad's 92nd birthday, and he's in my heart. So, Dad, I know you're up there smiling and pretty happy with the fact that I'm talking horse races. So happy birthday, Pop.
Amen. Happy birthday to the original Martinez.
Yeah.
Or at least one of them, but that's awesome. Thank you all so much for listening. And thank you, of course, Raider Jim. Have a great day. My name is Brandon Ferst, AKA Ferst Report. Now go wash your hands, everybody. Stop hating. And you know what? Go out and vote on Tuesday or send those ballots in or do what you got to do. It is your job as an American. So take care, everybody.